NASA says its Voyager 1 probe, the most distant human-made object in the universe.
Drifting silently through the darkness of interstellar space, NASA's ancient Voyager 1 spacecraft has detected something that shouldn't exist. Even more chilling, Voyager itself is changing, reconfiguring its systems in ways engineers never programmed. Did our oldest space traveler just discover alien technology, or has it become part of something bigger than humanity ever imagined? In the vast emptiness of space, a tiny machine is still talking to us after nearly 5 decades. Launched in 1977, when bell-bottoms were cool and Star Wars first hit theaters, Voyager 1 has become the first human-made object to reach interstellar space, the region between stars where our sun's influence fades away. This small spacecraft, no bigger than a car, has traveled over 15 billion miles from Earth, so far that radio signals moving at the speed of light take about 22 hours to reach it. Every command engineer send requires almost 2 full days for a reply, like having a conversation with someone who takes a day to answer every question. What makes this even more incredible is that Voyager 1 wasn't built to last this long. Its plutonium power source was only expected to keep it alive until the early 2000s. Yet here we are, and it's still whispering back to us across the stars. The spacecraft's instruments, magnetometers, cosmic ray detectors, and plasma wave sensors are relics of 1970s technology, originally designed to study planets, but now serving as our first ears and eyes in interstellar space. It also carries a famous golden record, a time capsule of Earth sounds, music, and greetings in dozens of languages, meant as a message to any intelligent life that might find it thousands of millions of years from now. But perhaps that message has already been heard. The mystery began as a small anomaly in Voyager's data, a flicker easily dismissed as background noise in space. Dr. Eliza Kana, a mission specialist, compared it to shouting into a canyon for decades, and finally something shouts back. At first, it seemed too faint to matter until the object that caused it moved. It didn't drift like a rock or spin like debris. It curved, accelerated, and glided as if under control. When Voyager's plasma sensors detected a shift that seemed deliberate and focused, NASA realized this was no random noise at all. Systems analyst Carlo Romero observed that the object's movement was unlike anything natural, describing it as a kind of deliberate motion one might expect from a drone rather than a rock, suggesting it had intention. That observation changed everything, because in the physics of space, things don't just move with purpose unless something is making them move that way. As Voyager transmitted this data back to Earth, the scientists found themselves facing a question they never expected to ask. What is it that moves like a machine, but isn't one of ours? The empty void between stars suddenly seemed less empty, and that realization sent ripples through NASA that would soon grow into waves. When something unusual appears in space, scientists have a standard playbook. They check all the familiar possibilities. Is it a small moon, a distant comet, a new asteroid? One by one, the team worked through these options, and one by one, each possibility fell away. This object wasn't a planet. Far too small. Not a comet either. There was no tail, no ice trail, no heat signature. It didn't glow like a star, and gravitational lensing couldn't explain what they were seeing. Even space dust was ruled out because dust doesn't suddenly change direction mid-flight. Dr. Lucas Hang at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory ran simulation after simulation trying to match the object behavior to known models. What makes space objects usually so predictable is physics. Everything moves according to known patterns and forces. But this object broke those rules. Its path bent in ways that didn't match any known orbital behavior, with no drift or decay that would be expected from natural objects. The team was forced to admit something difficult. What they were seeing wasn't just unknown. It was unnatural. The movement pattern suggested intelligence, or at least design, and that possibility was both exciting and deeply unsettling. If this wasn't a natural phenomenon, then what exactly had Voyager encountered in the darkness between stars? As the analysis continued, the behavior became even stranger. The object seemed to be moving with purpose on a specific trajectory that couldn't be explained by gravity, solar wind, or any of the other forces that typically influence objects in space. It was as if something, or someone, was guiding it, adjusting its course with precision. And that's when a second piece of evidence arrived that would transform this curious anomaly into something much more significant. Just as the scientists were trying to make sense of what Voyager 1 had detected, something unexpected happened. Voyager 2, the twin spacecraft following a completely different path millions of miles away detected something eerily similar. The same kind of magnetic fluctuation, the same kind of pulse, a matching signal. Signature that changed everything. This was the turning point in the investigation. Two different probes, two separate instruments, picking up nearly identical phenomena, ruled out the possibility of an internal error. It wasn't a software glitch or a sensor malfunction on Voyager 1. Whatever this was, it was real and happening in multiple directions of space. ESA analyst M.K. Fontaine compared it to two lighthouses both catching a flash of something passing between them. This cross-confirmation gave the anomaly weight and credibility. It wasn't noise. It wasn't Voyager acting up. It was a real coordinated phenomenon happening out there in the space between stars. The team now had evidence that couldn't be dismissed. Something was moving through the region of space where both Voyagers were traveling, and it was doing so in a way that defied conventional explanation. With this confirmation, NASA quietly triggered what's known as a Level 3 alert, a designation used only for phenomena that don't fit within our current scientific understanding. The event was real, the math was consistent, the movement appeared deliberate, and nobody knew what to make of it. As more data streamed in from both spacecraft, the picture became clearer, but also more mysterious. What had started as a single blip on Voyager 1 sensors was revealing itself to be something far more complex and organized than anyone had imagined. When the team pulled up the full telemetry logs and analyzed all the data, what they discovered sent chills down their spines. This wasn't just one or two anomalies moving through space. There were 305 objects, all moving together in formation. Each one glided past Voyager 1 in what appeared to be a choreographed arc, smooth, precise, and coordinated. These weren't debris fragments scattered randomly. There was no heat signature, no tails, no signs of decay that you'd expect from natural objects. Most striking of all, the readings showed rhythmic pulses echoing through plasma waves, the kind of pattern you'd expect from something engineered, not formed by chance. The 305 objects weren't simply passing through randomly. They were moving together as a unit, maintaining relative positions in a way that suggested organization and purpose. The formation itself defied natural explanation. In space, groups of objects tend to spread out over time due to slight differences in velocity, gravitational influences, and countless other factors. Yet these objects maintained their positions with precision that seemed impossible without some form of control or guidance. Some scientists compared it to watching a flock of birds or a school of fish, except these were in the vacuum of space, where such coordinated movement shouldn't be possible without technology. Others likened it to watching a drone swarm, each unit aware of the others, all moving with a shared purpose. The unsettling part was the scale. A single anomalous object might be explained away as an instrument error or a rare natural phenomenon, but 305 objects, all sharing the same unnatural characteristics and passing by Voyager at roughly the same time, suggested something far more significant was happening in interstellar space. As scientists examined the data more closely, something even stranger appeared in the signals, patterns of repetition, not the kind you'd expect from stars or cosmic background radiation, but steady, measured, and clean sequences that suggested communication or control systems. The plasma wave pulses coming from these objects had loops, sequences, and structures that hinted at something far more complex than random cosmic noise. They didn't just pass by Voyager, they seemed to broadcast signals, as if they were pinging, scanning, or talking to each other. Dr. Serena Patel from Caltech noted that the patterns felt less like nature and more like a language or a system. The idea was shocking but increasingly difficult to ignore. These objects weren't moving in a chaotic swarm, but in an ordered, intentional formation, similar to how programmed drones might operate. Some experts went further in their assessment. ESA's Eric Lowsey even suggested it could be some sort of probe network, though he was quickly told to stop speculating publicly. Even typically grounded scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson admitted there were patterns in the data that weren't random. To be absolutely certain they weren't seeing a glitch, the team activated one of Voyager's oldest subsystems, a backup telemetry channel that hadn't been used since the 1990s. It was meant for emergencies only, but it worked perfectly, confirming everything the primary systems had detected: the signals, the paths, the formations, all identical readings sent through a completely different channel. The implications were staggering. If these weren't errors in the machine, there were real phenomena unfolding in deep space. and the structured nature of the signal suggested not just movement, but information, as if these objects were communicating with each other or with something else entirely. Voyager's readings didn't just capture their presence. They also revealed how these objects move through space. And that's where things became even stranger. There were no engine flays, no ion trails, no signs of propulsion we would recognize. Yet Doppler shift measurements showed them accelerating rapidly, smoothly, and directionally. Some traveled faster than anything humans have ever launched, with a few even exceeding the calculated escape velocity of the entire Milky Way galaxy. These weren't passive drifters. They were powered somehow, moving with purpose and incredible speed. Dr. Caleb Ramirez from MIT noted, they are not floating through space, they're navigating it. But what concerned him most was their path. The object didn't approach Earth or our solar system. They passed by at a calculated distance, as if deliberately avoiding us, or simply having no reason to stop. The method of propulsion remained a complete mystery. Nothing in our current technology could explain it. The object seemed to manipulate space itself, creating ripples in the fabric of space-time that let them glide forward without conventional thrust. Theoretical physicist Elena Reyes described it as not flight as we understand it, but more like gliding on something we don't yet know how to measure. They appeared to use a very medium of space as their highway, not with engines, not with combustion, but through some interaction with a vacuum that bent the known rules of physics. This behavior didn't fit ion drives, solar sails, or nuclear propulsion. Whatever powered these objects was completely unknown to human science, hinting either at undiscovered natural laws or technology far beyond our capabilities. While NASA's team focused on Voyager's raw data, something began happening back on Earth. Across various corners of the globe, amateur radio operators, some just hobbyists with backyard setups, began reporting strange activity. They were picking up weak, irregular pulses, a kind of rhythmic static that didn't match any known terrestrial source. At first, it seemed unrelated, just coincidence perhaps. After all, radio interference happens all the time. But then the reports were time-stamped and compared, and they aligned almost perfectly with the same hours that Voyager had recorded its most intense plasma anomalies. That's when people started paying serious attention. These weren't professional observatories or part of any official deep space listening effort. Most of these setups were built from spare parts, tuned to catch meteor scatter, amateur satellites, or solar flare chatter. And yet, somehow, they were detecting faint echoes of what Voyager had picked up billions of miles away. The signals weren't strong, but they had pattern and regularity, like ripples reflecting off invisible walls in the ionosphere. Some suspected these were echoes bouncing off high-altitude atmospheric layers. Others proposed the signals were ricocheting off space debris or natural magnetic fields. But none of these explanations fully accounted for the timing or content of what was being detected. This raised a troubling question. Was this bleed-through accidental or purposeful? Was something out there testing Earth's listening capability, dropping breadcrumbs for us to follow? Or were the signals simply so powerful that they couldn't help but leak into our part of the electromagnetic spectrum? That uncertainty kicked off a quiet storm behind the scenes. NASA began encrypting parts of its deep space telemetry feeds, rerouting certain live transmissions through secure relay stations. Agencies like ESA and CNSA reportedly locked down their deep listening protocols. There was an unspoken sense that if random enthusiasts could pick up these fragments, so could others with more resources and possibly more questionable intentions. Intelligence agencies took notice, too, and discussions began about electromagnetic security. Could these signals be weaponized? Could they be intercepted, decoded, mimicked? As public chatter about the signals grew online in Reddit threads, fringe forums, and speculative blogs, the focus shifted from what the signals were to who else might be hearing them. NASA, in response, went increasingly quiet. Public updates slowed while internal data reviews accelerated. With mounting evidence that something truly unusual was happening, a team was tasked with combing through decades of Voyager logs, searching for any hint or pattern that might explain whether this phenomenon had happened before, perhaps unnoticed or misunderstood. Their search took them deep into the archives, into records untouched since the 1980s. If Voyager had encountered something like this in the past, there might be traces in the old data, clues overlooked because no one knew what to look for. The team didn't stop with Voyager. They pulled data from every deep space mission on record. Pioneer 10, Pioneer 11, New Horizons, all examined for similar patterns. But nothing matched. There were no echoes, no formations, no plasma loops in any previous mission data that resembled what Voyager was now detecting. That only deepened the mystery. If this kind of thing had happened before, we would have seen it in our records. These 305 objects, whatever they were, weren't part of a repeating cycle or known phenomenon. They were either entirely new or only now becoming visible to our instruments. Some researchers propose a chilling theory. Maybe these objects had always been out there, but cloaked or dormant. Maybe it was a Voyager signal itself, our golden record, or its slow mechanical ping, that had somehow woken them, called them, or simply alerted them to our presence. The absence of historical precedent made the situation even more extraordinary. If these objects were truly unique, a one-time occurrence in our space exploration history, then Voyager had stumbled upon something genuinely unprecedented. The spacecraft launched to study Jupiter and Saturn had, decades later, become witness to a phenomenon no human had ever observed before. With each new data packet from Voyager, the scientific community found itself torn between two uncomfortable explanations. On one hand, some believed these objects were probes, advanced engineered machines created by non-human intelligence. On the other hand, there was a possibility they were natural but exotic phenomena, particles or cosmic forces we haven't yet identified, operating in ways that defy the laws of physics as we currently understand them. Neither answer brought comfort. If they were probes, the questions came fast and hard. Who sent them? From where? How long had they been traveling? And why didn't they stop to investigate our solar system more closely? But if they were natural, unknown forms of matter or energy, it would mean the universe holds systems and rules we haven't even begun to observe. These were objects that glided through space in organized patterns, sending pulses, creating magnetic shifts, and displaying behaviors we'd never documented before. That kind of unknown might be even more unsettling than the alternative. One specific behavior pushed the debate into stranger territory. As these 305 objects passed Voyager, the local plasma field didn't just react. It changed. The density of charged particles fluctuated in clean, measured patterns. Magnetic fields warped around the objects. It wasn't chaotic or random. It looked designed, as if the object was shaping the space around them. It appeared almost as if they were using the medium of space itself to move, not with engines or combustion, but with something else entirely, something we haven't discovered, some form of interaction with the vacuum of space that bent the rules of motion as we understand them. The word paranormal started surfacing, not in the sense of ghosts or mythology, but in its original meaning, outside normal experience. This behavior didn't fit into our physics textbooks. And yet, it was happening, being recorded and cross-verified by multiple instruments. This wasn't science fiction anymore. It was reality unfolding on our instruments. And somehow, it was Voyager, our oldest, slowest, simplest craft, that was right in the middle of it all. Still working, still listening after all these decades in the cold emptiness of space. That fact alone made some scientists pause. Was Voyager's age, its analog design, its long-dormant sensors, was all of that a flaw? Or was it precisely the reason it could see what modern instruments missed? Perhaps it wasn't just coincidence that Voyager 1 captured this moment. This old machine, built by human hands and now drifting alone in the dark, seemed to have become something more than an observer. It had become a witness. And maybe the universe had chosen it to see something we were never meant to find so soon. Then, as if things weren't strange enough, Voyager itself began acting differently. Its guidance system, the AACS Attitude and Articulation Control System, started misbehaving, not catastrophically like a crash, but in a way that was oddly deliberate. It began routing data through long-unused systems, almost as if bypassing its own core software. At first, engineers assumed it was a bug. After all, this was a 47-year-old spacecraft running on code older than most of the people now analyzing it. But the deeper they looked, the stranger it became. Voyager wasn't failing. It was reconfiguring itself, reactivating memory segments untouched in decades, rerouting telemetry in ways never programmed. The real shock came when they realized this behavior began right after one of the magnetic pulses from a passing object. Could that burst have flipped a bit of memory? Could it have triggered some dormant function buried deep in Voyager's ancient architecture? No one knew for sure. What was certain was that this wasn't random data corruption. It was too systematic, too precise. Voyager still listened, still obeyed commands, but it was also doing something else, something new, never part of its original programming. To understand, engineers had to dig deep, even opening dusty file cabinets at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab. Most of its software was written in early assembly language, with some instructions existing only as scribbled notes in 1970s paper manuals. Every test was painfully slow. 22 hours to send command, 22 more to get a reply, a grueling 44-hour round trip with no room for mistakes. Still, they pressed on, rewriting patches, cautiously rebooting subsystems, and listening for changes. They even activated routines last used during the Reagan era, attempting to reset the system without wiping its memory. What they found was both promising and terrifying. The machine was stable, the instruments fine, but the new behaviors weren't disappearing. Whatever had caused them wasn't internal decay or software failure. Voyager had touched something, or something had touched Voyager. And now, the spacecraft was different. As scientists analyzed a strange signal pulsing through its instruments, a new and even stranger idea began to take shape. Among the plasma wave readings, certain patterns stood out, pulses that didn't behave like natural bursts of energy. They looked structured, measured, intentional. Then someone noticed something more unsettling. The waveforms resembled quantum oscillations, the same kind used in modern quantum entanglement experiments on Earth to transmit information between particles separated by vast distances. Subtle but undeniable, the resemblance opened the door to a possibility no one had considered before. What if Voyager wasn't just recording random events in deep space? What if it had become part of something bigger? Maybe the 305 objects weren't just flying by. Maybe they were transmitting, broadcasting data through the interstellar medium using methods we don't yet understand. And by pure chance, or maybe by design, Voyager was in the right place at the right time with the right kind of analog sensors to pick it up. It sounds like science fiction, but the deeper the analysis went, the more the math supported the possibility. The signals didn't behave like random noise. They repeated, they looped, they followed harmonic intervals that looked eerily close to what you'd expect from encoded information, something deliberately packed with meaning. This led to another realization. Voyager, being such an old machine, might actually be the perfect listener. Modern probes are too noisy, filled with high-frequency electronics, constantly transmitting and receiving chatter. But Voyager is slow, quiet, and analog. It has no clutter, no broadband digital static. It is, in a sense, the perfect ear in a cosmic concert hall. And being far outside the solar system, it's also free from the electromagnetic interference of Earth, free from the hiss of satellites, radar, and radio. It's just out there in the dark, listening. A perfect cosmic microphone. That changes the conversation, because now it's not just about what Voyager saw. It's about why. Were these signals meant for us? Did something know we were listening? Or is Voyager just an accidental listener, like a forgotten radio catching a transmission not meant for it? And if these 305 objects were sending a message, then what were they sending? And more hauntingly, who or what was supposed to receive it? The line between natural and artificial was starting to blur. Voyager may have crossed into something we haven't mapped, not just a part of space, but a network, a data layer, a communication channel that's been running for millennia, unnoticed until now. And the question no one could answer was perhaps the most chilling of all. What happens if Voyager replies?